Hey everybody, good people. I'm here in Yellowstone National Park on the side of the road getting a view of all this stuff there. I saw the geysers. I didn't stop for Old Faithful because the line of cars to do that was just insane. There were a bunch of other smaller geysers to look at, and yeah, I got the point. Anyway, this is gave me an opportunity to talk to you about nihilism, because I feel like I was, I don't know if to say the victim of nihilism since about 2016 and how it's really affected my life. So I'm gonna tell you that story. Hey everybody, I had to move. It was too loud, too many trucks and motorcycles going by, and I am looking forward to the days of electric cars. Things can be quieter. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about nihilism and how it affected me personally in my life. And let's just roll back. You know, ever since 2016 or so, for some reason, nihilism has been really rampant. And in fact, probably going back further than that, movies about apocalypse here and there over the last 15 or 20 years, and that's all we can think about. And of course, because climate change is real and we're not dealing with it, so instead we're having these fantasies in our movies about, you know, the end of worlds. That's doomerism, right? That's nihilism to a certain degree, in a cultural sense and in a personal sense. You know, whatever, 40% of the food that we make is just thrown out. I mean, you've heard these stats, right? Like, it's not new to us. You might be ignoring them, but they're real. So I want to talk to you about how that kind of growing nihilism going into 2016 had this really heavy effect on me that I didn't really see for a long time. And then how do you get out of it? So let me think about how I'm going to talk about this. So, but before I want to tell you my personal story, I just wanted to talk about how we know nihilism affects us very dramatically, and I'm going to put something in the show notes. There's a study I saw showing how nihilism discouraged people from interacting with the truth, with finding the truth, whether that's through media or your own, like your research and reputable sources, not like the Breitbart or some conspiracy theory things, but how this study will tell you how nihilism really affects your willingness to go out and find the truth. And if you can't find the truth, you can't have a democracy. And then there's this great Republican focus group named Sarah Longwell. She's with a group called The Bulwark, which is our anti-Trump Republicans. And she made this great point. She hasn't tested this, but she believes that there is a connection between nihilism and the growth of the anti-hero. You've got these folks, you know, your superheroes who are just bad people, but we turn them into superheroes. And I get it, it's supposed to be a nuance to everybody, but she believes that that has an effect on how people view the world around them, and they don't see a positive role for actual hero type figures. Anyway, so that's the thing. I'm still trying to figure out how to tell you about this passage of my life that was really, really tough. So this is kind of hard to talk about, but you know, around the time that Trump was elected, just before that, I found myself in a relationship with a person who I didn't know at the time was a real nihilist, and would argue that there's really no meaning to any of this. And I thought, well, you know, someone will grow out of that. It's not that no one really believes that, because you have to live in this world, and if you're going to live in this world, you might as well enjoy the time you have and find meaning in it. But you know, come along 2015, 16, along comes Trump, and there's a nihilism on top of a nihilism, rejection of the possibility of good in a pluralistic society. So I didn't realize it, but that over the next couple of years, it really infected me. And I thought, oh, I can get up and go to work at the legislature and fight for the causes that I care about. But what I didn't realize is that, like a cancer, nihilism is just eating away at your desire to keep fighting. It wants to tell you to give up. There you go. And so I found myself just going out and distracting myself with all these different things, and not thinking about how we could win and how we could make things better. And maybe there was an arc, and I never would have made anything better anyway until we finally get rid of people like Trump. You know, I feel like that's probably one of the reasons I lost my election in 2018. My heart was just not in it. I was just like going through the paces and endorsing somebody who really was not ready for that. And I found myself in 2019 and 20, like, oh, and just had to reset I went and got a yoga teacher certification, which is really crazy and a little weird for me. But then I went rafted the Colorado River again. I think many of you know I went to Burning Man and just said, what's the point of all this stuff? And had to really reflect. So the question becomes, like, how do you pull yourself back from that? And I hope that somebody watching this has felt a similar experience over the last almost 10 years, 7 years, 8 years, I can't count. Because I feel like we are going to get out of this. And once we get out of it, we're going to have to figure out how to find our optimism again. So let me reflect on how to talk about that. So I'm left here trying to figure out what to do with nihilism, or not what to do with it, but how I got out of it. And there were two major things. One of it was community, and the other one is scope. And right around 2020, after a year and a half of just kind of trying to decide what to do, I started doing consulting work for a bunch of organizations that work on renewable energy. And I realized over that time that community is an antidote to nihilism, right? If you get to dig into a problem with people and get to respect them, it's really hard to think that there's no good that come out of the world, right? But you get to see results all the time, even in small amounts. And that comes to scope. Global warming, poisoning our oceans, depopulating fish, destroying all of our wetlands. It's too big of a problem for one person. So I think what was happening is I went down to a place like the legislature, and I think a lot of people who survive there and run for Congress or something are really just good at that game. But my focus started getting drawn into the big problems and how to solve these problems that were just too much for one brain. But that's the scope part. When I realized I had this community of great people, and we just said, look, this is the thing we can work on. Arizona, trying to reduce emissions in this elected body, or talking to these people to convince them to think about it differently. That scope makes it possible. So nihilism says, yeah, you're not going to make any change at all. Eventually the earth is going to fall into the sun, and everything that you cared about and loved about it, even if it survives that long, is going to be dust. And the antidote to nihilism is, I care about these people, I want to do good for them, and I know what I can do good on. So this trip I'm on, this van life excursion, remote work thing, has been a great opportunity for me to think about, not just, hey, do I live in Arizona or do I go somewhere else? I get to apply community and scope. What community do I want to invest in? Do I want to hang out in Arizona even though it's going to get hotter and nastier because, policymakers have ignored the problem? Or do I say, that's my community and here are the things that I want to work on. Here's my scope. And it's maybe just a small, issue in Arizona. Maybe it's a smaller subset of what I used to work on. Anyway, I thought I'd take you through that little journey. I hope you've made it with me this far. If you have, you get a gold star on the refrigerator of life. But, I'm going to think about that more as I do more interviews with people. And I hope if you felt that throughout this whole Trumpian, dystopian thing we've had to live through, where up is down and down is up, and you can't trust media, but that's kind of by design to get you to do what they want. I hope that you come out of that and see a vision for an optimistic future, despite them not wanting you to. So, somebody not wanting you to. All right, that's it. I'll see you on the next leg of the journey. Bye.